Welcome to the Army Painter TV studio. In today's tutorial, we're going to show you how to take your skin tones from this to this. Hey everybody, it's Adam from the Army Painter. Very excited about this tutorial today. We're going to be taking a look at the brand new Skin Tones paint set. We have 3 Grom figurines from Arcadia Quest, the game, and we're going to be painting them up in 3 different skin tones using the paints found inside. And if you're lucky, maybe we'll even put some of the new quick shade washes and pigment toners to the test. Let's get right to it. I've got all of the acrylic paints from the skin tone set laid out for us here, and you can see the range in skin tones that we have, from very, very pale opal skin to very, very dark onyx skin over here. Just a little bit off camera, I'm just going to slide these over for you. Now, we developed these to work in very simple triads for the most simple painting. If you're painting darker skin tones, you could begin with onyx skin all the way up to tiger's eye, then jasper skin all the way up to amber, topaz to opal, and so on. But that doesn't have to limit you at all. You could paint these skin tones in any variation and combination that you'd like. To aid in that, we have these new pigment toners, our pearl pigment toner, garnet, and obsidian. Obsidian is a dark, richest bluish green tone. Obviously, the garnet pigment toner has some red hues, while our pearl is a more pinkish white tone. You can mix these in to further refine your skin tones. These are also pretty handy at more advanced techniques when you're adding rosiness to the skin or creating stubble or shadow. It's no secret that our quick shade washes are some of the most beloved products from the Army Painter range, and for this set we developed 3 new washes. Following in similar nomenclature, we have soft, strong, and dark skin wash. Now, the differences between these and the typical washes is that with the dark wash, there's a little bit of reddish and purple pigment mixed in, and the same with the strong skin wash and the soft skin wash. And they just kind of become a little bit lighter as you go through the 3 washes in this set. In this tutorial, I'm going to show off how you can put together these simple 3 color combinations in order to paint very simple and realistic skin tones. And then we're going to experiment a little bit. I'm going to show off the range of pigment toners. Let's jump right in. So I always love to use my wet palette anytime I am given the opportunity. I'm just going to begin by applying some of the paints to the wet palette. Some topaz skin, and then some ruby skin. This is going to be on the paler side of our skin tone set. And then finally, opal skin right here. And the beauty about using a wet palette is that it does preserve your paints. I'm just going to take a little bit of water from my clean rinsing jar and just going to thin these out a little bit. Clean that one off. And then there we go. We're getting just a nice smooth consistency. These paints are heavily packed with fine pigmentation. We're going to get some great coverage here. As always, it's recommended that you prime your models before you start painting them. This is going to help protect the models, and it's going to help the paint to adhere to it better. Now, Grom here was very simply primed with Uniform Gray from our color primer range. You can use our Brush On Gray primer if you'd like, or you could even use something like Barbarian Flesh or any of the other tones from the color primer range, but I really wanted to show off the coverage of the Skin Tones paint set. So we're just going to take a little bit of that topaz skin and we're going to apply a nice smooth and even coat all over the skin tones on this model. At this stage, you don't have to worry too much about getting it anywhere else on the model because you will paint over it, but we're not going to be doing that today. We're just going to show off the skin tones, just very simply like so. And the reason that we thin down our paints and water them down is that it allows us to get nice smooth coverage and we don't cover up any of the detail on the model. Now for our dark and our mid skin tones, we're going to follow the same principles, just with different colors. Go ahead and apply those base coats now. Take a look. All right, so we've applied our base coats to the models. That's step 1. Now we're going to apply a wash using the quick shade washes. Now, applying a wash adds extra shadow and depth to the model, brings out the contrast in the model, and picks out the details to make the next steps a little bit easier. We're going to move on to Grom number 2, as we're going to call him, and for him, we're going to use a bit of the strong skin wash. Remember that we based this model with Jasper skin. Now, you can thin this down if you want to. I'm going to use it right out of the bottle, right out of the pot, right off the palette. Now, one thing that you want to be careful about, and you can see it's beginning to happen here, this wash is pooling up a little bit too deeply in the eyes. So I'm just going to let it sit in there, and then I'm just going to move it around with my brush like so. So I'll keep coming back, and I just work that wash around very simply. Now you can apply this as heavily or as lightly as you want to, but I like to just make sure I get that wash into the recesses. When I need a little bit more, I'm going to go back to the palette, load up my brush again. I'm just going to very carefully apply this all over the model. You can see in the abdominal muscles here on Grom how that pigment, those darker pigments, are starting to work their way into the detail and into the recesses. That's what the washing step is all about. One tip for those of you that are new to miniature painting at home, I like to work, when I'm applying the wash, in a top-down fashion. You notice I started with the face, and then I worked my way onto the chest, down the neck, down the chest, and onto the abdomen of the model. And the reason I do this is because the wash has a higher viscosity, so it's going to move around the model a little bit more, and gravity is actually going to work its way. If you apply enough of this to the model, I'll try and illustrate this here, to the model, it does begin to kind of work its way down. So let gravity help you in this case. While we finish applying the wash to this model, let's check out the washes that we're going to apply to the other two. Now, it will take a little bit of time for that wash to dry, and when it does, you're going to go back and you're going to take those same base tones and you're going to re-establish it, but you're going to let the wash that's worked its way into the crevices and the details on the model to act as the lines in which you color, and we're going to show you how to do that right here with Grom number 3. So I'm just going back to my onyx skin, and I'm going to find the raised areas on the models, and you can see how that wash has left some shadow on this pectoral muscle here. I'm going to leave that wash in those recesses and just reestablish the base tone very simply like so. We're just coloring in the lines. Another good area to focus on the face, you want to focus on the nose, leaving some of that wash in the crease. It just really acts as a guide for where you want to place your highlights in future steps. On the back here, this is a great area to explain it. You can see that there is a deeper definition down the middle of the back between those two muscles and just a more subtle one. I'm going to leave that more subtle recess just like so, and still just focus on the raised areas, really adding some definition to this model. And we'll repeat this step using the base tone on all of the models. Now that we've reestablished the base tones, it's time to get started with our first real highlight. Now we're going to move on to the next paint in that 3-paint progression when you break up all of the paints that are inside the skin tones paint set. We're going to get started with Grom number 2. We're just going to move on to a bit of Dorado skin, and this is a nice lighter tone, but it's in the same color family. And we're just going to apply this over top like so. And for more advanced painters, what you could do is you could begin doing some wet blending on the miniature. I like to use the wet palette because it makes it very simple, because I can just go back and I grab a little bit of that Jasper skin and I can blend the two together on the model very simply. It's actually a lot more simple than you would think. Just keep some water handy and you go ahead just like so, and you get some nice smooth transitions. Another area that you're going to want to focus on is the tops of the hands, like so. This is pretty simple. You want to just focus this towards the end of the knuckles there, and then you could just take the side of your brush ever so slightly and just go ahead and just trace, call that an edge highlight right there on the fingers. Now, if you do get a little bit of the paint inside the knuckles there, you can just get your paint clean and just take the moisture just to pull that paint out. When I highlight faces, I like to start at the cheekbone here because it is one of the most pronounced areas on the face. And I like to work around from there because that's going to give me a good indication of my deepest, darkest colors on the face and the brightest before we get to the next and final step. Now on the pectoral muscles, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top like so, and I'm just going to work that highlight around and down around the outside. I'm going to leave some of that jasper skin towards the outer side of the pectoral muscle like so. And I could always come back in and blend more of that jasper skin in if I need to or feel like I want to, just to get that highlight and that gradient right. But just very simple. So I'm going to go around the rest of the model, applying these highlights to areas like the abs and the tops of the knees, the shoulders, of course. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do this on the other two Grom miniatures. I've grabbed our Masterclass dry brush. This is a very fine point brush, and I like using it for more detailed stuff like that, which is perfect because we're moving on to the finer details on painting skin. Now for this, we're just going to find a few focal points, and we're just going to pull a couple highlights and pull out those details like the tip of the nose here. And of course, you want to get these cheeks. He's got these lines in his cheeks, and you're really going to want the model to tell you what to do. But these are pretty consistent across most models, even though this is a more of a character type. So you can see I just picked out a couple of the areas on the face here, and if you feel like you went a little bit overboard, you can always go back. You can grab some of the colors because we are using our wet palette, and you can just blend them back in like so. That's the beauty of painting. You can always paint over any mistakes or just adjust as you go, adjust on the fly. Some other points that you might want to just highlight is just add a little dot like so. I'm using opal flesh here, and I'm just going to pick out those little areas on the abdominal muscles. You might want to just pick out a little part of the pectorals here. What we're really doing is we're just drawing the eye to certain areas. Now, it could be where light would actually reflect because there's a bone or something of that nature there, like on the kneecap here. Or it might just be something to draw the eye. The tip of the nose, of course, is a good point, and the sides of the upper lip, like so, really give it some definition. Now when we're done picking out the highlights on Grom number 1, we will repeat these steps with the appropriate colors on Grom 2 and 3. That about wraps up the basic 4-color or 3-color and a wash painting tutorial. If you followed along this far, your models just need to have a few of the other areas finished off and you will be ready for gaming very soon. Now I wanted to show off just a few little bits of the pigment toners that are found inside the set. Now, you can, of course, mix them with the paints found inside the set to really refine and master the hues and the brightness levels and the shadows of the skin tones that you're painting. That's great for elite and competition painters. But there's also some really simple tricks that you can put them to good use for with just the ingredients that you find inside the Skin Tones paint set. Let's check it out. So I've got a standard plastic palette here, and I've mixed in some War Paints mixing medium, which comes inside the set, and a little bit of our Garment pigment toner. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm just going to try and add some rosiness around the nose here of this Grom number 1, maybe underneath the eyes, like so. And this just acts as a glaze thanks to that pigment toner. And you can see already, just it's very, very subtle what we were able to do just with one little coat of this, and it really brings out the rosiness of the facial features here. This would be great for applying this around the facial features like the nose and underneath the eyes like so. It's also great to put around any wounded areas on the model, maybe even the center of his bare chest like so. I'm just going to remove some of that from the brush, and very simply, in just a matter of seconds, we've really taken this model to a completely different level by a very simple glaze using the Garment Pigment Toner. So I have some more of our War Paints mixing medium, and this time some of our Obsidian Pigment Toner. I love this color. It's almost a turquoise, and you can see the blue and the green tones come out, and there's a lot of black pigment in there as well. But what I love about this is a very perfect color for skin tones. Believe it or not, there is a lot of blues in human skin tones. It's why I like to use washes like Purple Wash, and it's why we put tones like purple in our quick shade toners. But for this, we're actually going to use this to paint a little bit of stubble. We're going to give the effect that there's maybe a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow on our Grom model here. And I'm just going to paint very light coats where he might have stubble from a beard on his face like so. And the great thing about working this way by using the glazing technique is that you can work in layers. You can build this up ever so subtly over time to get it to the perfect consistency and color that you want. And here you can see the somewhat finished models. Of course, I didn't go ahead and finish painting the hair or the boots, the loincloth, or any of Grom's weapons. I figured you could do that all your own at home. Today, we really wanted to showcase the new paints found inside the Skin Tones paint set. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I enjoyed painting up these models for you today. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned that painting diverse skin tones has never been easier when you use the paints inside the new Skin Tones paint set from the Army Painter. I really had a blast. I hope that you did too. I hope you try out some of these techniques and some of these new pigment toners and quick shade washes at home. Remember that the magic of miniature painting is that it can be as simple or as challenging as you'd like it to be. But with the right techniques, you're sure to achieve some great results. We'll see you next time.